Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we will be learning about the poem Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, written by Robert Frost. Before we start, let us look at what we will be doing in this video. We will be looking at the introduction to this poem. We will be analyzing the poem. We will be discussing the summary of this poem. We will be looking at the character sketch of the different characters in this poem. We will be discussing the various themes in this poem, and finally we will be identifying the different figures of speech which include poetic devices. So let us begin with the introduction to this poem. Stopping Through the Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. This is a celebrated poem exploring themes of nature, solitude, and duty. It depicts a traveler stopping to watch snow fall in the woods, highlighting a tempting escape from life's responsibilities. The poem is told from the perspective of a traveler who stops to watch the snow fall in the forest, and in doing so reflects on both nature and society. Frost claimed to have written the poem in one sitting. The poem describes a traveler who stops near a quiet, snowy forest on a winter evening and admires the beauty and peace of nature. Through simple language and beautiful imagery, Frost shows the attraction of rest and silence, while also reminding us about the responsibilities and duties in life. The poem is well known for its deep meaning, musical rhythm, and memorable ending. Let us move ahead to analyzing the poem. We will be analyzing this poem stanza-wise, and I will be doing line-by-line explanation. Please make note of the key points and important keywords. So let us move on to the first stanza, stanza 1. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. So the opening stanza immediately establishes a sense of quiet observation. So the speaker here is aware of ownership, yet feels a freedom in the woods. So the poet begins with his speaker intentionally considering and analyzing the fact that these woods seem familiar to him. Technically, it is understood that they are trespassing on another person's property. So a forest on land that does not belong to them. But knowing that the man won't be around for a while, the speaker can't stop from taking a few moments to watch the peaceful descent of winter through this forest. So later on we can understand that they shared moments in the past. In the first line, when the speaker says, whose woods these are, I think I know, it suggests a slight uncertainty or a deliberate detachment. So the owner's absence allows the speaker a private moment free from the judgment or interruption of a second person. So this tells us that the speaker right now is looking for a place for deeply personal and internal conversation. So when the speaker says, whose woods these are, I think I know, says that he is familiar to the woods, he is familiar to the owner, but right now they are not they are not attached, or there is a slight distance between them. The relationship is not at a very good stage. His house is in the village though. So the speaker here is aware of the owner and where the owner is residing right now. The owner refers to the owner of this forest or the woods. So his house is in the village though. He will not see me stopping here, which means the owner is in the village right now and he is not going to be here to see me or stop me from sitting here and having a look at the forest. He won't see me trespassing his private property, and so I can sit here and I can spend some time, I can have a personal conversation with myself. And when he says to watch his woods fill up with snow, it's a simple, sensory pleasure, highlighting the speaker's appreciation for the natural world and the beauty that he is seeing in that winter evening. So the poet points to the evidence of civilization near the woods when he says house and village, which means this is not a very abandoned area. The woods is somewhere near a town or a village, and there are people living there. The house is in the village, so they are aware of other people, but they don't know the speaker is there. So moreover, they're sure that the tenant didn't notice them. When he says he will not see me stopping here. So he's very sure that the owner won't be here for some time. He is in his house, and that house is in the village, and it's maybe it's just a little far, and so the owner won't understand that or notice that this speaker is here trespassing his property. Also, we can understand that when he says, he will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. So this means that anyway the owner is not going to come out of his house because of the heavy snow in the thick woods. So most people will, consider to remain indoors. So the narrator seems to enjoy this, solitude. The narrator is passing by someone's residence and feeling satisfied with their shadowy appearance, he stops by the woods to take rest, and they have stopped briefly to take in the wondrous view of the woods in front of them. So once again, let me explain. Whose woods these are, I think I know, which means that the speaker is familiar with the owner of the woods, though now they might not be in good terms. His house is in the village though, so the speaker is aware of the ownership of the woods and that he is not allowed to be there without the owner's permission. Still, because of the view, because of the wondrous view, he decides to sit there and have some time. So his house is in the village though. The house of the owner is in the village, and therefore he won't be here to stop the speaker to watch his woods fill up with snow. So there are 2 points here. His house is in the village though, which means that he is in a faraway place, or he is in a very socialized gathering. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow, which means that the owner of the woods is not going to be coming outside because it's very snowy, it's a winter evening and it's very cold, and so he will prefer sitting indoors and maybe sitting next to a fire and warming himself rather than coming to the woods and again looking at the frost and the snow. This explains the atmosphere in the woods. It's very calm, it's very quiet, nobody's there, and there's no noise, and it's a wondrous view to see the woods fill up with snow and to take rest there, and he feels very satisfied sitting alone, and the speaker is enjoying the solitude while sitting there. I hope the first stanza is clear. Let's move on to the second stanza, stanza 2. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. So the speaker in the second stanza introduces his companion, the horse. My little horse is his companion, which serves as a foil to his own nature. So in stanza 2, the narrator draws attention to the human aspect of peacefulness. So we can see that the horse accompanying them on their journey is not able to understand that the speaker has stopped to stare at the woods. So here we can understand that the speaker is a very considerate cat. When he says, my little horse must think it queer, it tells us that he is interpreting the horse's thoughts. So the horse must be surprised at this sudden, stopping at the woods. The horse's perspective that must think it queer to stop at such an isolated spot emphasizes the unusualness of the speaker's pause. So my little horse must think it queer means the horse finds it very odd or strange to stop without a farmhouse near. Farmhouse is a place where horses or animals can take rest, because animals are often driven by the instinct, making the horses wander, a gentle reminder of the human tendency to seek meaning beyond immediate needs. So right now what the horse wants, the horse and the speaker, both of them are very tired in this scene, and the horse is looking forward to a farmhouse near where it can take rest. But amidst the fact that it is tired, the horse is thinking, it's finding it odd to stop at a place without a farmhouse. So this shows that our human or animals tendency to think about something even when they are tired, a tendency to seek meaning beyond their immediate needs. So the horse is looking forward to a place, to a farmhouse. Farmhouse is a place where they can rest, where there's peace, there's enough food and comfort. So again, just like the speaker, even the horse is looking forward to a place where it can look for peace and rest. So both of them are almost at the same state between the woods and frozen lake. So as this verse says, the intensity of the winter cold has rendered the lake frozen. So here we can see that the cold or the frost in the woods is so much that even the lake has become frozen. But our speaker is so stubborn that he sees to adore the immediate present as opposed to the imminent nature. So he says that to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake. So this is, he's trying to emphasize on how cold the woods is or how snowy it is, that even the lake has become very frozen. The darkest evening of the year. So it is easy to assume that this poem takes place on the night of a winter solstice, but it can also be interpreted in to the more difficult times in a person's life. The darkest evening of the year can also refer to the weather, because it's very snowy and maybe even cloudy, and can also refer that his day was not going well. The darkest evening of the year means this day was very tiring and now he's looking for a place to rest. So it could also be literal, or it could mean that the speaker is having a hard day. So if so, it's all the more reason to stop and take a breath from the stress and difficulties of his life, while there's a horse that looks on without a care in the world. So when he says that the darkest evening of the year can refer to both the weather as well as his life, and he's also saying even the horse can feel the same way, even the horse is tired. So when he says that, the last two lines, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. So this intensifies the sense of isolation and the sense of silence, making the woods even more alluring as a place of escape for the speaker from the world's demands. So the narrator is hinting at the immense darkness that is awaiting him. In the woods, nighttime can be extremely distressing for a weary traveler who's miles away from home. But the speaker is torn between the two choices. He does not know if he has to head home or sink in the scenic beauty. So when we look at the last two lines, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year, tells us that sitting here like how the speaker and the horse is doing is not a very easy thing, because this, as I said, frozen lake, it intensifies the fact that the weather is very cold and snowy, and it's not very calm or nice to sit there and enjoy the weather. That is not how it is. The darkest evening of the year, this can be the weather as well as his life. So for a normal person, for a traveler who's very tired, it is not very comfortable to sit there in the snow and frost, but the speaker or the narrator finds this frozen lake better than the stress and distress of a normal human life. So amidst all the stress and worries and anxieties of human life, the narrator finds this snow or cold to be much better than all the pain that he has had in that day, or the darkest evening of the year. I hope this is clear. Let us move on to the third stanza. Stanza 3. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only sounds the sweep of easy wind and dowry flake. So in stanza 3, the reader of the poem should feel the same peace that the narrator is describing. The narrator continues to describe the thoughts they believe are in the horse's mind, which currently shakes his bell as it trots along the road. So the poet is trying to say that he's trying to describe the various thoughts and moments of his companion, the little horse. He gives his harness bells a shake. So the horse, he's describing the movements of the horse. He gives his harness bells a shake. So the bells refer to these, bells that are attached to the body of the horse. So the bells here, while he shakes, they jingle playfully, which says that the horse's inclination to leave the woods is so much that he feels gloomy and, very solitary. So since the horse can't speak its mind, the narrator chooses to interpret or describe the thoughts of and movements of the horse. So the horse's, harness bells a shake is a personified, as a question, because it's a gentle nudge back to reality. The horse, right now the narrator is in a sense of solitude and peace and he's resting, but the horse, jingles the bell, gives it a shake and tries to bring the narrator back to the reality that we are right now in a wood, and it's very gloomy and very silent. So since the horse can't speak its mind, the narrator is describing its thoughts. So yet the sound, it quickly fades, leaving only the sweep of easy wind and dowdy flake. So here the horse is shaking his bells and bringing the narrator back to the reality that he has to face his life ahead. And right now he's he's manifesting a life where he's sitting there and looking at the peaceful atmosphere and taking rest, and the horse makes that noise and brings the narrator back to reality to ask if there is some mistake. The horse is trying to bring him back to reality and asking him to come back to reality to ask if there is some mistake, because the horse does not find any peace or rest here. The horse finds rest in its farmhouse. Right now the horse is very gloomy and anxious, and to ask if there is some mistake, to ask if by mistake we have stopped here, we need to continue our journey. So when the sound of the bells, stop, the only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and dowry snake. So this line is a beautiful example of sensory detail. So it's painting a picture so soft of a silent snowfall. The silence is so complete that even the softest sounds become so prominent. Now tell me, to what extent can you hear, the sweep of wind and dowdy flake? It's not very prominent. But the silence is so much that we can even hear the movement of the winds. So that's how peaceful the atmosphere there is. So it draws the speaker deeper into, a state of meditation which is offered by the woods. So the speaker is miles away from anywhere and is buried deep in the woods, where the only sound is of the wind and of the snowflakes. So it is the poet's imagery that we can see here, and the poet affirms only three sounds in the forest, which is the sound of the bells shaking, the sweep of the easy wind, and the downy snowflake. So these are the only sounds that's there in the woods to sort of disturb the narrator from his peaceful atmosphere. So when the horse asks if there is some mistake, tells us that the horse is becoming restless and that it wants to go back home and it wants to take rest. So it also tells us that when one person is finding rest, it is not necessary that a second person should also find rest in that same place, should not find rest or comfort in the same point where one person is. So the peace of a person can seem like the mistake, to another person. So when a person or the narrator is trying to take rest and is finding peace at a place, the horse tries to bring him out of that and take him to a place where the horse is going to find rest. So the horse brings the narrator out of his peace or comfort zone and asks him if it's a mistake. So once the sound of the bell stopped, the only sound that we can hear is the sound of the sweep of easy wind and the falling of a snowflake. So I hope this is clear. Let us move on to the fourth stanza. Stanza 4. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep. The miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So during the fourth stanza, the speaker makes it clear that unfortunately peace does not last forever. The speaker confronts the powerful pull of the woods against his sense of solitude. Whatever long, dark, and difficult day is, this stop in the woods didn't go away while he was at peace. So distractions can be anything that can keep one's mind off the troubles, but the real world still exists. The narrator admits feeling, very relaxed and comfort at the woods, enveloped in nature's beauty. So the point has been driven home already, but the speaker is getting worried as darkness draws near. So they have to resume their journey. So when he says the woods are lovely, dark and deep. So this is how he describes the woods. He says the woods are lovely, dark and deep, and that he's finding comfort in the woods. It's lovely, it's dark, it's deep. So he's finding comfort, peace and sense of rest at the woods, and he does not feel like going. It's he feels like he is allured or he is enticed towards the woods. But when he says, but I have promises to keep, the speaker demonstrates an intense feeling, of longing to stay in the woods, to observe the woods. But the promises the speaker mentions several times could be countless, ranging from, domestic errands to dealing with marital affairs. So here we can see the speaker is still standing in the land of the owner and he is unwilling to live. So they are remaining in the woods, which maybe indicates their death. So this might, free their soul from the real world. Finally, the speaker becomes more practical. They are now firmly focused on going home. So since the poet is far away from his house, he now plans his life ahead, focusing on the way awaiting him. So looking at the poem is just about, an ordinary stopping in the wood scenario, but the individual immerses in the scene momentarily, and we can see that he is torn between the pending responsibilities of life and he is at the same time tempted to stay in the woods for a while. So finally he gives in to his longish journey and awaits his obligations. So when the poet describes the woods as lovely, dark and deep, it tells us of the seductive beauty and mysteries that are in the woods. They offer a profound sense of peace, perhaps even danger. So however, this temptation is immediately countered by the powerful declaration when the poet says, I have promises to keep. So these promises represent the speaker's responsibilities. He says that he has other duties and commitments to in his own life's journey. So and he repeats the lines, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So it's a powerful reminder of the journey ahead. Actually here we can say that this word sleep should indicate it has a very strong meaning. It can indicate both literally as a physical rest after a long day's travel, and metaphorically we can say that it is the ultimate rest of death. So the repetition emphasizes the weight of these obligations and the long path that must be traversed before true rest can be found, which tells us that the speakers wants to continue despite the wood's enchanting call. So we can take two meanings from this. One is metaphorically and another one is physically. We can say that the first one, let me talk about the physical aspect. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, so the speaker does not feel like going back. He wants to stay there because it's very seductive and he's very enticed to the woods. But I have promises to keep. He has a lot of duties and commitments to others, and he has a lot to do in his life. And miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep means right now he is tempted. He has two options. He is tempted to either stay in the woods or he has to go back home. But finally he decides to head back home and says, and miles to go before I sleep, which means there's a long journey for him to travel from the woods till his house, and miles to go before I sleep. So this tells us that only after traveling a lot can he find rest or sleep. So this is the physical aspect. But when we talk about the metaphorical aspect, he says that but I have promises to keep. I have promises to keep says that he has a lot of things to do in life and a lot of commitments to others, and miles to go before I sleep tells us that he has promises to keep and he has a long journey until he sleeps, which is the ultimate sleep of death. So here he can say that they are remaining in the woods and he is eagerly awaiting death. And miles to go before I sleep means it indicates death, the ultimate rest. So now this might free their soul from the real world, and he does not. When he says I have to go home, it can mean he wants to die, and he wants to be freed from this physical world. He wants to get out of the anxiety and stress, and he has a lot of things to do before he dies. He has a lot of promises to keep and a lot of commitments and duties to do and fulfill before he dies. And miles to go means he has a lot of things to do before I sleep, before I die, before my death. So even though he wants to get out of this physical world from the stress, he can't because he has promises to keep. Now I hope this is clear. So therefore we have come to the end of the explanation for this poem. I hope I have made each and every line clear. If you have any more doubts, kindly let me know through the comment section below. So now let us move on to the summary of this poem. Summary. The speaker stops in the quiet woods on the darkest evening of the year and thinks about the owner of the forest whose house is far away in the village. He pauses to watch the woods fill with snow while his little horse finds it strange to stop where there is no farmhouse nearby, between the woods and the frozen lake. The horse shakes its harness bells as if asking whether there is some mistake, while the only sounds are the easy wind and soft falling snowflakes. Though the woods seem lovely, dark and deep, the speaker remembers the promises and responsibilities he must fulfill. So he continues his journey with many miles left to go before he rests. Let us look at the character sketch of the speaker. The speaker of stopping by woods on a snowy evening is an anonymous traveler who pauses in the snowy woods while traveling to another place where he has promises to keep. Though little is known about the speaker's identity, he is shown as thoughtful and hesitant, and he is torn between the peaceful beauty of nature and the responsibilities of society. While the repeated miles to go before I sleep suggest duty, weariness, and even the deeper idea of life's journey before death. We can also understand that the speaker is a person who enjoys the beauty of nature and he finds rest and comfort while sitting in the company and admiring nature. He is a person with a lot of stress and anxiety in life, but even though all that is there, he finds the hardships in the woods, the snow as well as the frozen lake to be much better than the stress and anxieties of real physical human life. We can see that he was going through a lot of problems, and to escape from them he came to this wood, and a place which was not very accepted in that evening, which was very snowy, was not accepted even by the owner. He was in the first stanza, we can see he was indoors and he was not coming out uh, of his house, and he will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. So he was, even the owner was inside, but the speaker found even the hardship of weather to be better than the stress and anxiety that he was facing that day. I hope this is clear. Let us move ahead to discuss the various themes of this book. Nature versus society. So the poet presents nature as both beautiful and mysterious while contrasting it with human society. The speaker stops in the snowy woods at night to watch the snowfall far away from the village and civilization. The silence of the woods, broken only by the horses' harness bells, an easy wind, and the soft snowflakes, creates a peaceful yet lonely atmosphere. Though the woods are lovely, dark, and deep, the speaker remembers his promises and responsibilities. Even though nature offers comfort and quiet reflection, he continues his journey with many miles left before he can rest. The next theme is social obligation versus personal desire. You can justify this with your own answers and understanding, and also use the words from the text. The next theme is hesitation and choice. This also you can justify based on your understanding, and also make sure that you use keywords from the text. You can also come up with your own themes and justify it properly, and make sure you use all the keywords and key points, and you will get your respective marks. So let us move ahead to identifying the figures of speech. The first figure of speech is alliteration. Whose woods these are, I think I know. So here we can see a repetition of the letter W as well as of T and H. So this is alliteration. The next line also, his house is in the his house is in the village though. So again we can see a repetition of H as well as TH. He will not see me stopping here. Again we can see a repetition of the letter S. To watch his woods fill up with snow. So again we can see a repetition of the letter W. So it's a W sound. I hope this is clear. So these lines are alliteration. Next, personification. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. So here the poet is giving the horse human attributes when he tries to interpret or describe the thoughts that the horse is having. So the horse is over here is seen to shake his bell and to ask if there is some mistake. Now we all know that the horse cannot ask verbally to the speaker. So that is giving the horse human attributes. Imagery. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. So we can get a picture, or the poet is trying to bring a picture of how the woods look at night. Woods filled up with snow. So again we can imagine, a picture of the woods which are filled up with snow and frost. Darkest evening of the year. Again it's an imagery, and also downy flake. Sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Next, let us look at the metaphor. And miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So more than metaphor, this is also a repetition, or it's an anaphora, you can see, because both the lines are repeated. Repetition. As I said earlier, the last two lines are repetition. And miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So these two lines are repetition, or you can also say anaphora. So therefore we come to the end of this video. I hope this video was of help to you, and also that you have understood all the concepts that we have discussed. If you have any more doubts, please let me know through the comment section below. I will be happy to help you. Also, if you have anything to add to what I have said or shown, kindly do so in the comment section below. It will be a great help for each other. So thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned and let us meet again in another educational video. Thank you and happy learning.